Hello YouTube, this is a video response to Gineriella. I hope I'm pronouncing her username correctly, even though I've watched her videos for quite some time now. I'm not sure how to pronounce her username, and if I am getting it wrong, then please don't hate me. I'm Scottish and I have trouble with stuff. Alright, so Gineriella did a video, I'm going to call her Gina, is that alright? Okay. Gina did a video about stand-up comedy. Look, I wrote stuff down about it and everything. And I'm a big stand-up fan, and I just wanted to sort of talk about some of the points that she made. So I'll leave a link to the video down below if you want to go and check that out. And I suggest you do because she's got a really great channel. Anyway, so first of all, Gineriella was saying that she's got experience doing stand up and it's something that she's been wanting to do a video on for a while. So she did talk about specific stand up comedians, people that get like a bit of a hard time, like Dane Cook and things like that. But I'm not really going to talk about that. I wanted to talk about the fact that I think stand up comedy is the hardest or most difficult art form to be part of. I've never done it. I've done public speaking in front of big crowds a few times, and I have both succeeded amazingly and also died terribly on my arse. So I know the highs and lows of doing stuff like that. And there was a lot of comedy in what I was doing. It was like speeches and things like that, but it wasn't really stand up comedy, I suppose you would call it. But I respect anyone who does stand up comedy because, I've played gigs, I've done some acting, I've done some stuff on stage, but to actually be up there on your own with no one else just talking, I don't think you have the same safety net. I don't think you have the same guard up against who you really are. Someone can say that they don't like your guitar playing or your singing, or they don't like your acting even. But I think when someone says that they don't like your stand up comedy, I think it feels like much more of a personal thing to you, I would think anyway. So I think you're up there with no one else. At least if you're in a band, you've got people to die with. And I'm not talking about some sort of weird assassination plot. I mean, just doing terribly on stage. But if you're on your own doing stand up, that's it. You're just there on your, by yourself. And I just totally respect anyone that does that. And I think I don't know if I could do it. So Gina Rila said that she thought that stand-up comedy was being comedic or being funny was innate. It's something that people are kind of born with. You have like an implicit understanding of what it is to be funny. I would say that that is the case with a lot of people. I mean, remember when you're at school, there's always like the funny guy in school or the funny person in school. There's always certain people that just seem to have a natural knack for comedy. But I do think that it is also something that you can certainly hone and get better at. I think you look at some people's careers and you can see that they do get better at it. I think it is something that you can learn to a degree as well. I would equate it to I've taught guitar for about 10 years, and I know 10 years, oh, and I would say there are people that I teach improvisation to people as well, and I would say when people are improvising on a guitar, I think that's kind of like you're having to bring something to the table, and some people are terrible at it. In fact, everybody's terrible at improvising when they first start. Every single person I've taught, but eventually they get really good at it, and eventually they're just really creative with it, and they bring things to it. And I just think that I don't know. I personally think that you can learn anything that you put your mind to. That's my opinion, and I think even being funny, although it's not a definitive thing that you can quantify and say, "Here you go, this is how you be funny." I think it is something that you can pick up as you go. One day, maybe even I'll pick it up. So don't feel sorry for me. And Gina Rila also said that comedy is not something to be taken seriously. I disagree with that as well. I think that, she said that you're just going and someone's there to make you laugh and that's all it is. It's just jokes. some comedians are like that. I think there's two types of comedy. One type of comedy is where it's just about making you laugh and that's it, and that's fine. There are some great, amazing comedians that are like that. However, I think when you look at people like Bill Hicks, George Carlin, Lenny Bruce, and even to a certain extent Richard Pryor, you realise that comedy or stand up can be something much greater than just someone telling jokes. It can actually have an effect on people, it can inspire people, and it can even educate people, I think. And I think a lot of people, certainly over here in Britain, Bill Hicks wasn't massive over in America. I think he's quite well known now, but he was big in Britain, and he's certainly someone who I used to watch and just I was in awe of what he did. He obviously started off as a stand-up comic, and he's very, very funny. And there are some stand-up comedians who hate anybody turning around and saying Bill Hicks was like he was a social commentator. You know, he was more than a comedian. Some stand-up comics I've seen in interviews saying nope, he was just a comedian. But I disagree with that. I think that someone like Bill Hicks used his comedy to talk about things that he believed in and wanted other people to see the light, so to speak. And I think that that's when comedy can have its sort of greatest influence. I think George Carlin is a great example of that. Bill Hicks probably built a lot on what George Carlin had done previously, and he built on what the likes of Lenny Bruce and people like that had done. And you know, someone like George Carlin really, he's very funny, but he does promote some quite extreme ideas about social inclusion, and I don't mean extreme in a bad way. I just mean that they're on the periphery of these sorts of ideas. He does promote certain things about society that about atheism, that I think it goes beyond just comedy. You know, he was actually trying to say something, and I guess it's like, you know, you'll have films that are funny, but have, you know, a deeper meaning to them. And I think just in the same way, I mean, Doctor Strangelove is hilarious, right? It's one of the funniest films ever made. Life of Brian is hilarious, again one of the funniest films ever made in my opinion. But those two films were about a lot more than just being funny, you know. One was about the ridiculousness of the power struggles in the world in terms of the military, and the other was about, you know, I think quite a scathing attack on organised religion and how it starts. But both were very, very funny, and but we're about more than that. And I think in the same way you have stand-up comics who transcend what they do, you know. So yeah, I don't think stand-up comedy is just about telling some jokes and making people laugh. I mean, in some instances it is, but I think in others it's not. What else? I've written too big a list. Too big a list to do all of this. I'm boring myself already, and I'm sure I'm boring you. But I thought Gina's video. I hate doing video responses to people where I can't say their name. I don't want to say her. That's rude. Her video. She. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Gineriella's video, I think, was very good, so I just wanted to do a video response to it. I'm very tired. And being blinded by this light. Can you see how bright it is? And I'm pasty as it is, but I can see myself on the screen there, and I look like Data from Star Trek. I really do. That's quite frightening. Yeah, some of my favourite comics. I mean, I would say to me, my favourite stand-up comedian of all time was Richard Pryor. I think he had just everything. I think he was a great observer of things, but he also had characters, and he also did some social commentary as well. I mean, if you watch his concert on Sunset Strip, where he talks about how he's never going to call another black person nigger again, and how he's come to this sort of a moment of clarity in his life about that. It's quite moving, and again transcends what just stand-up comedy is. But I think Richard Pryor just had everything. I just think he was absolutely amazing, you know. And obviously, being a Scotsman, I have to also mention Billy Connolly. I think Billy Connolly is a great comedian. He's more of, he's kind of, I mean, he does commentate on things, but he is more of just sort of telling funny stories. I think that's more his sort of bag. Um, the point was also brought up about, you know, are women funny? There aren't many successful stand-up comics who are women, and I think that's a really touchy subject. I remember Christopher Hitchens commenting on it, and a lot of people blew up about that. I think there are two problems. One is people don't have an acceptance of women within stand-up comedy because they're just not established as much, so you're just not used to seeing them. So when you do see a woman come up, you kind of don't, it kind of throws you off. I think people are thrown off by it, and they don't feel as if like, oh, this is going to be funny, even though some of them, in my opinion, are very funny. But I also think that, and this is maybe a little bit more controversial, I think men, rightly or wrongly, probably wrongly, have been, some men have been pigeonholed into being funny. It's been like a defense mechanism for them because things operate slightly differently, you know, amongst men as they do amongst women, you know, when you're younger, when you're kids. And I think that's why, although uh, although girls obviously can get bullied just as much as guys, there seems to be this defense mechanism in a lot of guys, which they then start being maybe a bit self-deprecating and start being funny. But then, and I think that sort of trickles up to stand-up comedy. A lot of comedians are people who made the idea of being the funny person their own. But then I remember girls at my school that were funny. So I don't know. I might be talking bullshit, but I think that there is pigeonholing going on definitely with regards to, you know, women stand-up comedians. Can they be successful at it? I don't see any reason why they can't, but I think it's just, I think, you know, obviously people like Sarah Silverman, you know, she's quite big, but I think that it's going to really take one or two stand-up comics who are female to be talked about, you know, to be put right up there with the greats. Once someone does that, then I think it'll be more acceptable. And the more people you see doing that, the more women you see doing that, the more women are going to aspire to that as well. I think that's a big part of it as well. If you just see men doing it, I would imagine if you're a woman, you might think it's a guy thing, you know, I'm not really going to go and do that. So if you see more women doing it, you might be more inclined to give it a go. And that's really about it. That was a really terrible video. I apologise. I'm really tired. And I'm honestly, I feel like I'm being interrogated by the Gestapo up here. I probably shouldn't do that. That's when I'm talking about Gestapo. Not a very clever thing to do. Anyway, I hope you're all doing well. Go and check out Gineriella's video down below, and definitely go and check out her channel because she's very funny and she does some great videos. And thank you to one of my subscribers who mentioned her channel to me a little while ago. That's how I discovered her. So, but I can't remember who it was that said it. I apologise. So I'll see you all soon, after the weekend probably, when hopefully next week I'll have some more time to do a proper video. I don't know what this is. I look like I've lost 2 hand puppets. Anyway, right, bye for now. Have a good weekend.